Thank you. But the blockchain maturity model is a very exciting topic. It is a cornerstone of GBA, and honestly, I think it's going to change the entire industry, for those of you who know something about it. And so let me tell you a little bit about it briefly, and then I'll introduce the panelists and tell you what they're doing with respect to that. So our standards working group, gosh, I think about 2 years ago, the idea actually goes back about 3 or 4 years, said that enterprises and governments are going to be spending a lot of money on blockchain. The problem is there have been a lot of scams. There's been a lot of frauds. There's been a lot of, missed opportunity. It's kind of like the internet bubble, right? And anybody who had a good idea, they put together a pitch deck, they raised a bunch of money, right? They built some tech, they sold it, but they never really built the infrastructure, so what happened? The thing collapsed. And between 2017 and 2022, 75% of blockchain projects failed. So government acquisition people and folks at the enterprise level are very gun shy about going into this with some stranger. They're a lot more interested in going in with like IBM or Deloitte or some of these big companies. But these innovative companies, I'm sorry, I've heard about blockchain. Look, I've seen about SBF, right? I don't want to have any part of it. So the blockchain maturity model was developed as a framework to help organizations basically separate the wheat from the chaff, right? So that it was an assessment framework, and it does two things. It's a roadmap to help developers build solutions that can be trusted, and it is an evaluation method to help investors, to help acquisition people be able to evaluate a project. And so with respect to that, we built the BMM. As we started doing it, we realized that the blockchain maturity model has 11 requirements, 11 elements, and each of those elements are evaluated in 5 levels of maturity. Is it mature enough for research and development funding? Is it mature enough to be deployed as a prototype? Is it mature enough to be deployed into production? Is it mature enough to be deployed at an enterprise level or a global or public rollout? But as we started doing it, we realized that some industries had unique requirements. So for example, if you're doing identity management in banking financial services, you got to do AML KYC. But if you're doing it in the voting industry, you have to have permanent separability between the voter and the vote. Or in other words, anonymity is a legal requirement. Very different than banking. So we said, look, we need these supplements, right? We need these things that are industry specific. And so the first one we did was a bank and financial services. Is Paul in the audience? Paul's back there. He did the first bank and financial services supplement. We talked about that at the last event. Since the last event, we've started now, we have over 50 working groups. These different working groups have started building these different financial supplements, these different blockchain supplements. We've run 3 companies completely through the process. We've had many approach us and say, hey, we think we're level 5, we want that badge from the GBA. And most of them abandoned ship after they saw what the requirements were. And we said level 1 to be very easy, but even with that, many organizations didn't, when we would ask them simple questions like, can you identify your critical components and who has a responsibility to manage the operational status of it? Deer in the headlights. So many have came, 3 have come through, right? Those that didn't, we're going back and reworking. And so the UN found out what we're doing, and so now the United Nations is showcasing this model as a global standard for blockchain solutions.
Good job.
Well, thanks, Holly. Now, that took too long because I really want you to hear from these folks, right? So I'm going to let each one of you take a little time. We got about 30 minutes left on the clock. So take about 5 minutes each. And let me do this. I'll introduce Stacy and then tell them a little bit about what you're doing with digital asset management. And then Jackie, I'll do you, and then Marquis. Yeah, you just stay at the back of the bus, okay?
That's fine. Yeah, that's where I belong.
Yeah, but anyway. So let me tell you about Stacy. And I'm not going to call you an expert.
You better not call me the tornado again.
You got to turn it on. So Stacy is a forensic accountant. She works with a very large company. She is brilliant, and I have been so impressed with her work ethic, her ability to slice through things. So there's a big mess here, and she works with a team of people that have been working on the digital asset management supplement, and just done a great job of herding cats and taking all this stuff. And I am so incredibly impressed by you. She lives in D.C., and thank you for being here. So tell them a little bit about what you guys are doing with digital asset, and then Jackie, we'll do you next.
So most of those crypto failures you talked about, right, and the failing businesses, a lot of times they don't fail because the technology is bad, right, or the idea isn't feasible. A lot of them fail because they didn't pay attention to the business fundamentals. They didn't have perhaps good accounting. They couldn't pass an audit to get funding. Perhaps they had some legal risks they didn't realize. Give you an example. This is one I talk about quite a bit. A couple years ago, I'm mentoring in a blockchain accelerator. We're about to welcome our third cohort in January. So it was the first year, and I was working with a startup who they were organized in a way where they had all of their operations outside the United States, and so they thought they were exempt from a lot of U.S. regulation. Well, we dug into what their corporate structure looked like and how the companies were set up and the entities were set up. Come to find out, they were incorporated in Delaware in order to take U.S. investors' money that they were investing in and to funnel that into the operations. And also, the founder lived in the United States. I see some of you laughing because you know what I'm about to say. If you have that corporation in Delaware and you're doing a banking use case, you are 100% going to be subject to FinCEN and KYC AML and all sorts of things, right? They didn't realize that. He had to shut down the entire operation until he could get a lawyer to consult on, like, how do we fix this? How do we put in the KYC controls and protections? He thought that because my operations are in Africa, I don't have to worry about it. So that's kind of where digital asset management starts from. It's from those experiences, and also, for instance, my co-lead, Allison Moffett, who many of you know, she is on the legal side of it, helping with doing a lot of these money service businesses, registrations, and other legal aspects, right? And what we ultimately started to bring together and form was that there wasn't a really good comprehensive course out there that would cover the technical accounting correctly and then cover the legal aspects and pull it all together into one course, right? And where that intersects with the BMM is, one person on a BMM team needs to come into the room having this knowledge, right? Having this understanding of how do I assess the risk of, like, the governance, the business model, the stability of the idea, right? How many people in here would consider themselves an entrepreneur? Okay. So entrepreneurship is kind of like tattoos, right? Once you get your first one, you already know what your second, third, and fourth one will be. Yeah. So if you're going to start a company, by the time you've started the first one, you've already got your...
How many tattoos do you have?
I don't have any.
Okay. Well, then I'm not sure if you're qualified for that statement, but...
I would be then.
Let the record state.
I've had many heavily tattooed people tell me this is true. I have it from credible sources. So, here's the thing. If you're doing a BMM assessment, one thing that's really important is to have the person or have the entity or the owner of that company or the operators, whoever those executives are, map out your company for me. Let me see what all the entities are and how your money flows through it, how you're funding, what does your operations, where do people sit. And that's part of knowing is the business governance system stable enough? Have they paid attention to the regulations? Do they understand their accounting? Do they have the appropriate accounting, right? Are they able to track it appropriately? It's very common when you do a startup. You start up in, Excel or Google Sheets, and then maybe you graduate to QuickBooks, which ask any CPA, and every time you say QuickBooks, it's like, I love it and I hate it. Like, I can't really decide if I hate it more than I love it, but as that grows, right, there aren't a lot of crypto-savvy accountants out there. The really refined solutions are very expensive, so a lot of times it gets, kind of pushed to the side. And so our goal with digital asset management is give people that general education on the accounting, the legal, and the tokenomic considerations, the risk assessment, and fraud assessment, to be able to either do that for their own entity, their own companies, or as part of a BMM team to be able to assess another startup or another company.
Yeah, and so let me just provide some additional context there. Whenever we perform a BMM assessment, right, there's 4 skills that have to be on the assessment team. You need somebody that knows the blockchain technology, somebody that knows the domain, somebody that knows legal and regulatory, and somebody that knows digital asset management, right? So every assessment, so if you're doing a healthcare assessment, you've got to have somebody that's a healthcare subject matter expert. If you're doing a voting assessment, you've got to do a voting subject matter expert on it, which Linda right here will be on a panel later. Linda is our only voting and election subject matter expert that's BMM qualified. So when you do an assessment, it's a very comprehensive assessment. It's very orthogonal. It's looking at the same thing from different perspectives. Very comprehensive. Let me go ahead and segue over to Jackie. So, one more thing. What these guys are doing is they're creating a digital asset management certification, which I think we have it scheduled to be done right before the May event, right? It may be done sooner, but by then you will be able to get a GBA certification as a digital asset management, and it also will be showcased. So the United Nations Internet Governance Forum is a place where we're showcasing people who are credentialed, right, and solutions that have been credentialed that are globally recognized. So it's and if you go to gbaglobal.org, what's the best way to get there? If you send an email to events@gbaglobal.org, we'll get you the information if you're interested in that. Now, Jackie leads our legal working group, and Jackie also is known as Crypto Mom 2, right? Who's Crypto Mom 1? Do you know?
Hester.
Oh, Hester Pierce. Got it, of course. But she runs the legal working group. She also runs the legal, what is it?
Blockchain Legal Institute.
The Blockchain Legal Institute. So what I like, and so she also is very involved in education, and it's been a different, and she runs a GBA podcast as well. So it's very deep knowledge, has really had a passion to educate people for a long time, and really can take very complex legal matters and make them very simple, which is quite a skill. So tell us a little bit about 2 things. Tell us about what's in the legal, the legal, and some of the resources you're making available to people to help them untangle all this.
So first, I want to just say that everyone has to take the digital asset training that you're creating, because it's really extremely detailed and so precise. So, again, how many in the audience have actually gone through the BMM? A few, okay. Yeah, it's really important for everyone who is within GBA to do this, for your own knowledge base. I know for myself as an attorney, I am a generalist. I've always said that I don't practice traditional law. And I believe in having many tools in my toolkit for those that come to me, which is why I created the Blockchain Legal Institute. But I'm also an educator, nationally board certified in general education and special education, so diverse learning. One of the things that occurred to me as I was rereading the BMM resources last night, this is very similar to what we call in the teaching profession the FFT, the Framework for Teaching, that Danielson created. And really, in the county, in the state that I'm in Maryland, we use the FFT to do teacher evaluations. We look at the planning, the classroom environment, the instruction, and then the reflection. The BMM is no different than what is happening in the teaching profession with the FFT, but it's on the blockchain side. And it's really important when you have an entrepreneur who's creating a company using blockchain and creating a solution that you use the same framework that is in the teaching profession in the blockchain. And that's exactly what you created. You're creating a standard that is global, that is going to be impacting the industry because of the fact that it requires an assessment and reflection on quality and growth, because no one in the teaching side can always be distinguished. You are always striving for that. So again, when you're in a company, you need to be striving for the next step that you need to go. And we know blockchain evolves all the time. One of the things that I'm very concerned about, again, which is why I wanted to be part of GBA, wanted to be a part of the BMM, and also involved in the talk show and things like that, is the education side. There are a little bit over 200 law schools. There are over 1 million lawyers. There are only about 20 of those law schools that have a blockchain type of class. Even in colleges, universities. My major was multidisciplinary, science, technology, and society. But my school, Vassar, doesn't have a blockchain-oriented class. I had to go and teach one, and I'm still talking to them about doing that. This is very important from the education perspective. We need to start in the elementary, middle, and high school and colleges, because as entrepreneurs, I forget who I was talking to when we were having coffee, he started his company when he was in college. Well, you know, we have to think about how are we educating the next generation. The BMM is part of that. And so, for example, within the Blockchain Legal Institute, I have that as one of the classes. So individuals who are coming there will know that this is something that they need to integrate both at a college level, because we have interns, as well as at a professional level. So, so that's an overview as to the importance, the global importance of why this is something that we need to get the word out of, because it's going to mean that we have a better generation of entrepreneurs who are creating solutions that are long-lasting. I forget which resource I found last night, but it said that there were, in Europe, about 5,000 new blockchain companies last year developed, 6,000 in Europe. Now, that number might be, you know, a little bit low, but again, how many of those companies are going to continue to succeed, and how many of them need to do this type of evaluation so they can become better and more profitable and help who they want to help. On the assessment side, one of the debates that we've had is what kind of background should a lawyer have in order to actually support the team and the assessment. I'm of the mindset that in law school you learn how to use the law library, you can't know everything. But there are different fields, you know. So I kind of view this in a multidisciplinary way. I think you might have a specialist who has done a deep dive in the legal area, but you might also have someone who is a really great critical thinker who can be part of that team, who can look at something that they've never had any knowledge background and say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense to me. And in not making sense, they can ask a question which can then unravel the next step.
Yeah, let me tag onto that real quick. When we do a BMM assessment, right, and there's 4 skill sets that have to be on the team, and this might surprise you. Some of the people on the assessment team can be from inside the company that we're assessing, right? Because this is not a third-party outside test. It's really focused on collaboration, and that the assessment team actually partners with the people being assessed, because we believe that they want to mature and they don't want to go to jail, right? And now check this out. When they get through it, they get published on a United Nations directory of trusted blockchain solutions, right? So this is a big deal. Now, nobody on the assessment team wants to screw that up. So what we found in all the assessments that we've had is that people on the inside of the team have been very honest, right? Sharing their concerns, right? And we've done 3 assessments so far. 2 of them were like a hot knife cutting through butter, right? One of them took a year. Hey, Jordan, are you back there? Yeah. I have a video on the runner's show. Is it possible that we can show that? It's the Earl video. Yeah. Can you cue that up? All right. Yeah. Don't play it until I tell you. I'm just giving you a heads up. So the 2 that were like a hot knife cutting through butter, these were industrial solutions that decided that, okay, we're going to build a blockchain thing. So they brought all of their maturity with them. The other one took a year to do because this was sort of their first rodeo. So it's not like we go in one day and go, ask these questions, you pass or fail. No, we sit down and it's a collaborative process and we start going through it. Oh, that doesn't work? Okay, well, here are the problems. And we identified things like, oh, you know what? The way you are validating these things is creating great vulnerability. Oh, okay. And then it is very consultative in its nature. So we have one. Jordan, let me know when you can cue it up. All right. So we did one assessment, and the president of that company, so this is in the gaming industry,
So there's a lot of money laundering that happens in gaming. I will get to you, Marquis. I'm going to give you at least 10 minutes on this, so don't worry.
Oh, man, I'm not worried.
And I'm going to talk to you about your socks, so you be ready about that. So look, in the gaming industry, there's a lot of money laundering. So these guys put an IoT device in the slot machine. So whenever they pulled this, when somebody pulled the handle on a slot, it wrote the transaction to a blockchain, right? So that way, the operators of the casino could prove to the regulators, hey, we're not doing any funny business. You can stop crawling up our dark side, right? And it made the regulators happy, and it made the casino operators happy. So it really, it was awesome. So we delivered this, but it wasn't easy because these guys had a lot to overcome. When we delivered the findings to the president of this company, who also happens to be the president of the International Gaming Standards Association, he was so impressed that he decided to take this to the entire gaming industry. Jordan, are you ready to pull it up? So we delivered the findings. These were the first words out of his mouth after we delivered the findings.
Can everybody see this?
So can anybody do lip reading in the audience? Yeah. Yeah. If we can't do it, we can play it later when we do the solution awards. That's all right. We'll pull it up later. We'll test this at lunch, and we'll pull it up later. But it really is an incredible process because you're bringing together people from a variety of different perspectives, internal to the organization and external, all with the same goal that we want to get things better. And this model was developed over 2 years with some of the incredible people. You get a chance to meet Dino either tonight or tomorrow. Dino is the Chief Information Officer of the United Nations Pension Fund. He manages an $80 billion fund, and he's also the digital transformation lead for the entire United Nations, right? He's one of the, he built the first blockchain for the UN for identity management. He was one of the authors. And so we have people like him from around the world from many different blockchains, and developed over a 2-year period. So the model is solid. The skill sets are solid, and the combination of people is just incredible.
So one last thing, you asked me about the resources that we're going to provide.
Yep.
We're doing a survey right now, so it's really important that even if you have not taken advantage of the BMM, if you work with an attorney, we need to hear from that attorney, even if they're not a member of GBA, because I want to ask them questions as to what they need to know, what do they know, so we can incorporate that into the checklist that we're going to be asking attorneys who are going to be sitting on these different teams. And so we want to survey those that are in our community who are working with blockchain companies. So we have 78 members in our legal working group, but not all of them are attorneys, which is great. But I want to have diverse views and ask questions. So have them reach out to us, so that way we can include their voice in the development of this.
Absolutely. And we got Tom Goldstein. I just saw you walk in. Tom, you want to raise your hand? Did I see Tom? I thought I did. Okay. So we got Cogent Law Firm, Perkins Coie. Do we have any Perkins Coie attorneys here? Yeah, back in the back. So Perkins Coie, they've got a blockchain law group as well. They're also helping us with our BMM intellectual property stuff. So just great stuff. All right, let's talk healthcare. So one of the domains that is required on any assessment is domain specific, right? And so Marquis leads the healthcare working group. So Marquis, you got about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. You're going to give me 10 minutes in front
yeah,
of the
well,
mic.
it's good. So do me a favor.
Start with some knock-knock
Do me
jokes.
2 things. Walk us through the process for developing one of these supplements and how you see it being used in the healthcare industry.
Okay.
And then take a minute to talk about what you're doing with Brian, because I think that's really fascinating.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So I've been working with the healthcare working group for sunny side of 5 years now, and it's really been professionally valuable to me to be connected with so many people in tech and in healthcare around the world. But it can be very challenging in herding all of those very highly credentialed, very busy cats in creating guidance around an industry. And so when Gerard had come to me, the BMM had it's finished its first iteration, said that it's a good idea maybe to look at a healthcare supplement. By that time, I think the banking and finance working group had already completed theirs, and I kind of took a page out of Paul Dowding's playbook in him creating the basic edifice of the information that they wanted to discuss, and then opening it up to the rest of his cohort to wordsmith it or to fact check it, and et cetera. We started gathering the information about what would be useful to the healthcare milieu in a healthcare supplement relative to the blockchain maturity model. And for several months, the healthcare working group was sponsoring a panel discussion, or I'm sorry, a roundtable discussion that was open to the public on the third Thursday of every month. So anybody who got our invite from the healthcare industry and et cetera could join in and give us their input. And a lot of people gave us some interesting ideas on use cases and so forth. But when we came back to how this would be useful in a supplement, you could swing a dead cat and hit 100 use cases, right? So I went back to my team at Clinical Squared, and so I'm also the CEO of Solution Development and a healthcare consulting company, where the folks in my group have decades of experience in healthcare operational processes and procedures, from clinical practice to the technology, vetting, and so forth. And then there were some members of the healthcare working group, notably Dr. Wendy Charles, who contributed significantly, and Dr. Ann Ingraham, that were saying, well, if healthcare organizations don't find your information valuable to them, then we're wasting time. Healthcare is arguably the highest regulated industry that there is, rivaled only by finance. And they already have a whole lot of hoops they have to jump through around their IT governance specifically. So we wanted to take the approach of demonstrating our understanding of healthcare IT governance for people in the healthcare community. And we modeled our guidance as far as the requirements of what a blockchain solution could bring to an organization, regardless of what the use case is. Are they HIPAA compliant? Are they GDPR compliant? Are they transacting on X12, which is business and financial data? Are they a medical device, right, where ISO 13420 guidelines are required? So we collected the requirements of what a blockchain system needs to meet if they walk through the door of a healthcare organization and says, we want to be part of your infrastructure. We also kept the use cases, the information that we came up with regarding use cases as an appendix for informational purposes only, because use cases is only limited by the imagination of the technologist and the process. So we created a way to regard the blockchain solution that a healthcare organization might be regarding based on their solution transaction modality. And we broke it down into whether or not the solution was a patient-facing solution, if it was an internal solution, if it was a cohort-facing solution in the case where organizations are sharing information, about the medical situations or practices and conditions, or if it was a reporting solution. Now, I have the copy here. I'm very pleased to share this with anybody here, and there are a lot of people in this room that have been supporting the healthcare working group and its efforts. So I kind of wanted to parade this around and show it off to you, what your support has garnered. But it's
We'll
arguably...
We'll put a QR code out in the lobby so you can
that's
download.
great.
Yeah, so we'll have a QR code after lunch so you can download any of the BMM.
Yeah, but one of the first things that we say in this document is that it's a living document. There's still a lot of room for growth, for us to be informed. One of the hurdles that I think we had to overcome was a lot of the participants were from the United States. We want to create guidance that's applicable internationally. And so we're inviting members of the medical community and the tech community around the world to participate in creating more guidance, growing this supplement into really touching all of the meaningful components of a blockchain system as it would affect a healthcare organization, small, medium, large, in the real world.
Hey, Marquis, I'm going to ask for a couple minutes back because I do want to give some time for questions and answers. Real quick, tell them about what you're doing with AI. Just take a minute, and then I want to open it up for just a couple
Yeah, thanks for that. Yep.
Yeah.
So my good friend Brian Feinberg, who was just up on the last panel, heads Plato AI, and we've been talking about how we could align our disciplines together, us being in healthcare, working with big data, he being in the AI and machine learning space. We forged a partnership very recently where we've created a proof of concept where we take clinical trials data and we feed it into our AI machine learning edifice in such a way that the AI learns from the information we're providing it, and then the bot that we've created allows a person to speak colloquially about what information there is in that repository. So we did a quick case study on...
Can I pause quick? Brian Feinberg's got a table out here. Will you be with him out there periodically?
Yeah, and so we can even show you this.
Yeah, so come on out and talk to him. I want to. We got about 3 minutes left.
That's Gerard's way of giving me the hook.
Yeah,
Playing the wrap it up music.
Thanks to Jordan, we have a time rep here, so this is how we stay on time. Does anybody have a question about the BMM or anything that we've covered so far? Yeah, Ryan.
I have a question regarding the music industry and how the BMM could influence that. I'm really participating heavily in the Web3 music industry, and I'm curious how I can influence CEOs of sound Web3 platforms, how to help them understand how the BMM could help reinforce their compliance.
Okay, so let me repeat that for folks that are watching or listening online. So Ryan Cooper, who's very involved in the music and Web3 space, you go by Ryan Coop DeVille, right? If you look for him online, wonderful human being, great musician. Asks how can this apply to the music industry? So in addition to the healthcare supplement, we're also working on the gaming supplement, the AI supplement, and many others. We haven't started working on a music supplement. We do have an intellectual property for like art and entertainment. So we haven't thought about that yet, but I would like to thank you for volunteering for the leadership in that capacity. Please,
All right.
please talk to us afterwards.
And definitely connect with the legal working team because there were so many things that popped into my head as you were asking about that. So, yeah.
What you'll find is as we're doing all of this, so when Marquis is working on healthcare, that also interacts with the identity management working group, right? And the same thing with the voting working group, identity management. So, right, all of these, so it's Javon. Javon's not here yet. All of Javon's friends are here, but Javon's not here yet, right? Javon is a PMO, and we call him, he's the glue that holds everything together. He'll be on a later panel. But all of these different supplements are working together, and they're using a common framework, a common language, a common assessment methodology, right? And this is why the UN is so excited. The Internet Governance Forum, which meets every year, they bring together Google, ICANN, MIT, to manage the internet, right? They were missing a Web3 or blockchain component. They said, what you guys have done, no one else has done. We've integrated ISO, the ISO, because they worked on, ISO worked for years, and they came up with a glossary, right? So we incorporated the glossary, but because we have people all over the world in all these different disciplines, right, we can actually build this family of standards, and literally, this is going to impact the entire blockchain industry. I got time for one short question. No, I'm good? Excellent. Then we got, Rob, I'm giving you back 10 seconds. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well, I will add, this is an opportunity for anybody that's interested that's not already aligned with a GBA working group to find the working group that speaks to the things that you're interested in and join. Anybody that's interested in healthcare, technology, the convergence of the two, please see me. We'd love to have you and collaborate with you.